Most couples, when they think about investing or their investment rate, the only investment most couples make together is buying a house.
Yeah, well, and that's questionably not even an investment.
Most people think renting is wasting money.
Yep.
And the logic goes, well, if my rent is $2,000 a month or £2,000 a month, my mortgage is only going to be £2,000 a month. So we might as well buy a house because then we get to keep the asset.
Are you trying to get me mad right now? I'm starting to sweat just hearing this because you're right. That's what they say. Should I just dismantle these arguments once and for all right now?
Sure.
Okay. Renting is not throwing away money. Just like going to a sushi restaurant is not throwing money away on sushi. You're paying for something, you're getting value. It's fantastic. The next argument they use is you're paying your landlord's mortgage. I go, okay, aren't you paying the sushi owner's mortgage when you go there and get sushi? Funny, we never think about it like that. We only think about paying the landlord's mortgage. Finally, we have to understand that buying a house can be a good financial decision. It can be. But renting and investing the difference can also be a good decision. And right now in the US, in the top 50 US metro cities, it is cheaper to rent than to buy. So let me give you some math. Let's say, because I lived in New York, close by, if the rent was, let's say, $3,000 a month, to own the equivalent property right next door would have been $6,600 a month. That's $3,600 per month more just to own. So most people don't know this. They don't factor in phantom costs like maintenance, taxes, transaction, opportunity cost. They simply look at a number that says, 3,600 or whatever the number may be, and they go, great investment. We have got to get more sophisticated with the biggest purchase of our lives.
I'm just looking at some of the comments on our last conversation.
Oh yeah, what'd they say?
It's a balancing act. There's two groups of people here. There's a group of people who attest to the fact that they bought a house and it's the single best thing they did.
Yep.
This person said, I bought a house. It's the best thing I ever did. It's launched my mindset in new directions. Remember that having your own space has profound psychological impacts and can change your life.
That's a good comment. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. I love that comment. We have to remember that life is not just about a spreadsheet. It's not. So when it comes to a major purchase like a house or a car, we got to start with the numbers, okay? We have to start by running a buy versus rent calculation, by running an amortization chart. I have a whole bunch of stuff on buy versus rent. And then we need to know, can we afford it? Is this part of our rich life vision? What if one of us loses our job, and on and on and on. But then second, we need to say, what kind of lifestyle do we want? If we love to decorate, that's probably worth something. Maybe we need to buy a house. If we want our kids to be in a particular area, maybe we need to buy. There's so many non-financial reasons to buy or to rent. And so we can't just do one or the other. But my main argument is this: most of us never run the numbers. We will spend $1 million in total cost of ownership for a house, and we won't run one calculation. So we got to play multiple notes doing the financial and non-financial parts.
I think that's what a lot of people are actually saying. A lot of people are saying, I bought a house, and this person's saying, I used to live in a caravan. I finally bought a house, and I don't care about being rich necessarily, but having my own house means the world to me.
Great non-financial reason. They want stability. I totally value that. I would also ask, did you run the numbers?
I think the key thing is most people, when they buy the house, they see it as an investment and they see it as a good investment. I think in part because they don't really know any other way to invest.
Totally right.
So we grow up, we think, okay, the minute you get enough money, the first thing you have to do is buy a house. I mean, there's a real sequence of events in our lives that are given to us, which is go to school, go to college or university or something like that there, get the degree, get the job, buy the house, get married, have the kids.
And then move to Florida, get skin cancer, die.
Oh, retire.
Okay.
Have your pension, die.
We don't have pensions anymore. That was in the 60s. But yes. And actually, that's a pretty good life if you think about it. It's actually a very good life, especially the way that our parents' generation grew up where, they could buy a house on a reasonable salary, one salary, but that doesn't exist right now. Housing is historically expensive. And not through any fault of young people, by the way. There's a lot of this stuff thrown around the media. Young people are buying too much avocado toast. They're always buying the new iPhone. That's not why housing is expensive. Housing is expensive because people who bought their houses in the 60s, 70s, and 80s bought a house, and then systematically prevented everyone else from building more housing. So it's called NIMBYism, not in my backyard. They have allowed almost no housing to be built, particularly in the US. That's why if you only have a limited supply, guess what happens to the price? It goes way up. That's changing slowly. Housing prices will, in certain cities like Austin, even Santa Monica, have come down in certain areas. It's really important to be able to build more housing so that young people, middle-class people, poor people can afford housing. We should not have people unable to afford rent or buying housing. That's a big problem.
So are you saying that the average couple, if they're looking to make a financial return on their joint savings account, they shouldn't invest that money in a house?
I personally would not consider my primary residence to be a great investment because it has massive costs, right? Massive. Maintenance, opportunity cost of that down payment. Let's say you put down $50K or $100K, that could have been invested. It has all kinds of phantom costs. And then you have to stay there until you pay it off, presumably 30 years. Most people don't stay for 30 years. There's some shocking math behind a mortgage. Like most people don't realize that they will be paying more towards their interest than towards principal for 21 years. Let me say that again. Most people, when they take a 30-year mortgage right now with interest rates the way they are, they will be paying more towards interest than they are towards the mortgage in year 1, 2, 5, 10, year 20, until finally year 21, when they are finally paying more towards their mortgage, their principal, rather than interest. So you know that phrase, I don't want to throw money away on rent? We might more aptly say, I don't want to throw money away on interest.
So if I'm in a couple, I'm in a relationship, and me and my partner have managed to save, I don't know, 50K, what is a better use of that 50K to drive a financial return?
Okay, so let's simplify the whole thing. I have a conscious spending plan. I have 4 numbers that couples should be talking about, okay? The first off is your fixed costs. Those should be roughly 50 to 60% of your take-home pay.
And what's a fixed cost?
Fixed costs includes your housing, or that could be rent, mortgage, your utilities, your car payment, any debt payment, anything that is consistent, even groceries that you need to live every single month.
So 50% of my monthly income goes straight to those fixed costs.
Monthly take home, post-tax.
Post-tax, okay.
Yeah. 50 to 60% is the number you want to be targeting. Right there is the crux of why couples are stressed out about money. It's because they are spending too much on fixed costs. And within that, there's 2 areas they spend too much on. You know what they are? Housing is number 1 because it's so expensive and they don't calculate. Number 2 is cars, usually trucks. We love trucks and SUVs. In America, the cultural script is, oh, we're having a kid, we need to get a big house and a big SUV because we do. So that right there is where people get stressed out about money. Next number is your savings. This should be 5 to 10% minimum. This includes your emergency fund. This includes saving for a down payment. Anything you're saving for money you don't need for between 1 to 5 years, basically. Okay. Next up is investments. This would be 5 to 10% minimum. This is where real wealth is created. And this is where couples neglect. They talk about saving and they'll say, oh, we try to save. I don't try to brush my teeth. I don't try to save. I make it automatic. That's what I want couples to do. That's what I cover in the book. And then finally, my favorite category of all, guilt-free spending. This is going out for drinks, concerts, travel, 20 to 35% of take-home pay. That's a lot. That's a lot. If you look at it, people go, wow, yes. And when you get down to that number and you're out and you're having drinks with your friends or you're out to a beautiful experience, you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to feel guilty or anxious because you're already handling all these other 3 numbers. You know you're set and you have this money set aside and you can enjoy it guilt-free.
So this sort of 10% that is automatically invested, would you set up some kind of system that automatically invests it?
Always, always. You should not be doing any of this manually. So your investments should be happening automatically. And for a couple, you actually get to celebrate it every month. You have a monthly money meeting where you talk about money every month. Most couples don't do this. You will now after watching this, and you talk about it. You look at how your investments are doing. You give each other a high five, a big hug, congratulations. And once you do this for 6 months, a year, you really start to see how it adds up fast.
What if your partner wants to buy a house and you don't?
Ooh, that's tricky. How would you handle it?
It depends on my level of conviction about the decision. I think you've got to pick your battles in relationships. But I am probably more financially aware than my partner because my brother he's been an investment banker for 13 years. He works for me full time.
Okay.
He's my money guy.
Yeah, okay.
He's my older brother.
What does he charge you? 1.5%?
He doesn't charge me a percentage on my portfolio.
I'm so happy.
No, he works full time in the business. So he manages much of my money, but he would make the case to me of pretty much the case you've made.
Yeah.
So based on an opportunity cost basis, i.e., for a lot of people don't even know what opportunity cost is. I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to try and explain it, which is essentially all the things you could have done with this money instead.
Yes.
So based on all the opportunities you have available to you, Steve, is buying this house a good use of that money? And the answer was actually no when I bought my first house. It was no, unless this is a emotional decision because you and your partner want a psychological feeling of safety to bring up the kids, whatever it might be. Then if it is, Steve, if that's why you want to buy it and you think you're going to stay there for a considerable amount of years, then go ahead. We're going to kind of section this as a different rationale than the rest of your investments.
What did you do?
I did exactly what he said.
You bought it knowing it was an emotional decision.
Yeah, I bought it knowing it was a bad decision.
I love this.
Yeah.
Okay, this is amazing. Everybody listen closely because I want to break down what you just said in a different term. First off, you got to run the numbers.
Yeah.
Always. For the biggest purchases in your life, you need to calculate carefully what's my buy versus rent, what's my opportunity cost, what's it going to amortize at, all these things that most people are not familiar with. Learn it. It's not that complicated. Second, you need to factor in the non-financial. Hey, why am I doing this? Do I just feel this certain way? There's nothing wrong with feeling irrational about money. Nothing. You want to buy this thing and it's a bad financial decision? Okay. First, can I afford it? If so, we can continue the conversation. And then you buy it eyes wide open saying, I know it's not an investment. I know it's not even a good financial decision. In fact, it's a terrible financial decision. And I'm still going to do it.
Yeah.
When my wife and I go to buy a house one day, it will be the worst financial decision of our lives. We already know that. But we will probably still do it anyway. Same as you, because there's more to life than just what's in a spreadsheet. But you have to know all the pieces on the board before you make these big decisions. And you have to be able to do it with your partner. You know, it'd be very easy for you to do things unilaterally. It'd be very easy for me to do it as well. What I've learned and what I emphasize on my podcast every episode is just because you may be the higher earner or have more money, it's actually your obligation to bring your partner in and to get them involved. And they may not be as savvy or even as interested, but you have to find a way to bring them into this world and get them connected with you. With my wife and me, of course, I know more about investments. So I'm doing our investments, but we're still talking about them. We're saying like, hey, here's the numbers we chose. Are we still good with that? Let's take a look at it. High five. You know, here's what we're thinking for next year. That's the level we're talking about. These are exactly the kind of conversations you want to have. And I'm actually really thrilled you shared that example because I celebrate that you made a bad financial investment because it wasn't an investment. It was just something you wanted and you could afford it.
Mm. Yeah, and we're both aware, me and my partner, we had the conversation, we're both aware that this is one of the worst things we could have spent the money on. If our objective, if our KPI, our key performance indicator was to make more money, this was a terrible decision to make.
Yes.
But we're also aware, we just didn't care. We thought, there's a lot of non-monetary things that are going to be beneficial about this decision. And I think that's what most people don't realize, actually. And I just think about my friends. I think most of my friends believe that when they buy their house, they're doing so because they don't know it. They don't know any other way to invest. Yeah. Society hasn't given us an alternative. So what is the alternative?
Simple, low-cost, long-term index funds are fantastic ways to invest. I'll explain what they are. The myth about investing is that you have to sit there and look at PE ratios and things like that. No, you pick often one fund. There's a simple example called a target date fund. You pick the year you're going to retire in. Like if I'm going to retire in 2050, I pick a Vanguard 2050 fund or Fidelity or Schwab 2050 fund. All I do is literally send money every single month. I set it up so it happens automatically. It could be $50 a month, 500, 500,000 per month. And that's all I do. I just send it there. It automatically buys the stock market. It automatically diversifies and gets more conservative over time. And that's it. So, you know, the fitness world, I've seen you training, you've learned about fitness. When you first start off, so much information and so many different people giving you different pieces of advice, right? It's like, oh my God, how am I supposed to know? What about my genetics and this and that? And then over time you realize, oh, it's actually pretty simple once you cut through the noise. That's the same thing with money. That's the same thing with investing. You have to cut through the noise and it actually becomes shockingly simple. Oh my God, this is the way that real wealth is created. It's about consistent investing. It's about time. It's about low fees. That's it. And you start to wonder, what's all this stuff that they publish all the time in these magazines and newspapers and on TikTok? It's just noise.
Do you know when you sat down with those 180 odd couples you've spoken to about money in their relationship, have you not had moments where one of the partners was shocked?
Always.
For better and for worse?
Yeah. Actually, yes. Sometimes they are shocked before they meet me because I have them prepare their document with their financials, and one of them has never actually looked at their financials, sometimes both, and they realize it's much worse than they thought or it's much better. Sometimes we're talking and one of the partners will actually talk about how they feel for the first time ever, and the other partner will be crying.
Give me some examples of the moments that you remember that shocked you the most.
I think about one of the most shocking examples was a woman who was around the age of mid-40s, maybe 50, and she had had a double lung transplant. And she had successfully had the transplant and she was alive. She was healthy, but she knew that she would live 5 or 10 more years. That's what the doctors told her. And she said, I want to share this time with my daughters. They were around 11 and 12, her husband. And I want to do that. I said, okay, what's stopping you? And she said, well, I still have a job. And I looked at her financials. They were multimillionaires. They had saved consistently, doing index funds over time, nothing fancy, just consistent investing. She could stop working tomorrow and they would have enough money forever. She couldn't stop. She said, I like to work. I like knowing that I have a job. I like the consistent income. So most people are used to getting an income. And that's why they find it so difficult to retire, among other reasons, because the income will stop. Even though I can point out to them the investment portfolio you've built and Social Security and all these things will actually pay you, people are terrified of not seeing that money come into their checking account. In this case, she had a ticking clock. We all have a clock, but she knew how long hers would go for. She found it incredibly difficult to quit her job and spend time with her daughters. Now, if we're listening to this, it's like, just quit. It's so obvious to all of us. But we're not the ones making the decision. That was quite shocking to hear how difficult it can be, even in cases of life or death. Wanting to have a stable income can affect us.
And what about earning? Like, what role does earning play? Like, just earning more money play in all of this stuff? Because I think I'm going to be honest, I had a bias when I was 18, 19 years old. I was fairly reckless with money. And I had these 4 credit cards. I maxed out the credit cards. I blew the money. I got 2 CCJs, which is a county court judgment in the UK.
Okay.
Had huge debts of thousands of pounds. And in my head, I thought, it will be fine.
If I just earn more.
Yeah. No, because I'm going to earn so much money that I'll just outpace this problem. And that was like my bias. My bias was like, I'll just earn loads of money. And when I figured out what a credit score was and that mine was destroyed, I thought that won't matter because I'll always pay in cash.
Yeah, it's classic. Every couple I speak to who has a spending problem, they always say the same thing. They go, we just need to earn more. And these are the very same couples, when we crunch their numbers, they'll often realize they were earning way more than they thought. And you can see their faces because I have the whole thing on YouTube. And it's this realization that oh my God, the story I've been telling myself, if we just earn $25,000 more, and then they realize we actually are earning 25K more and they don't know what to do with it. What I tell them is you could be making $300,000 more right now and it would not make one bit of difference because you have a hole in your bucket and all the money is going out. The next thing I ask overspenders is, do you want to make no change, small change, or big changes? 100% of them say big changes. I go, all right. I take them at their word. And then we start going down the list. And they find it incredibly difficult to strip out even the most minor of spending. So we have a couple here that will be in literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. Okay, it's like I'm having a heart attack watching them, and they're very calm. It's because I understand interest rates and I know what situation they're in. And so they go, big changes. Suddenly, 10 minutes later, we're debating whether they can keep their Netflix subscription or not. And I go, guys, I'm not here to berate you. I'm not the teacher who's telling the kid you've been a bad kid, which deep down, a lot of them want. A lot of us want an authority figure to tell you, you've been bad, now we gotta be good. And that's just not what I do. I help them realize it themselves. And it goes slower. It takes a long time. But if they realize it themselves, they're able to make the change. Every couple says they want to make big changes. When it gets down to the spending, it's really difficult. That's why you have to be incredibly careful which lifestyle purchases you make that are tied to your identity. So if you are a car person and you're driving a Rolls Royce, a really fancy car, it will be incredibly difficult for you to downgrade that car because it's part of your identity, right? Meanwhile, like if you have to get cheaper paper towels, whatever, nobody cares. But you have to be very careful about what you allow to become part of your identity. I'm not saying don't buy nice things. And couples, you should buy nice things, but do it when you know that you can afford to do it forever. Don't just do it because, oh, we want to buy private school this year, but we don't know how to pay for it next year.
So do you think that couples should make a budget?
I don't like budgets. I don't think they work. I think they look backwards, whereas a conscious spending plan looks forward. But most couples think deep down, we just need to create a budget.
Isn't a budget the thing you gave me, like
No.
the 50%, 60%?
Different. A budget is couples tracking every last line item. They're tracking how much they spent on corn. They're tracking how much they spent on diapers. Someone has to create and track this laborious spreadsheet. And then at the end of the month, they look at it and they go, I guess we spent that much. What are you supposed to do with that? Most couples have no idea. Does this budget tell you when you're going to be a millionaire? Does it tell you what your net worth is? Does it tell you if you have enough? No, it doesn't stack up to anything. It's just a bunch of numbers tracking. Budgets look backwards. A conscious spending plan looks forward. So a conscious spending plan allows you to zoom out and say, what is the vision for our rich life? How do we pick the things we want to spend extravagantly on and cut costs mercilessly on the things we don't? So I give you these numbers, 50 to 60% for fixed costs. It's up to you how you want to hit the number. If you love your house, you want to spend more on your house, do it. Maybe it means you spend less on your car payment. If you want to go to concerts, but you don't care about eating out, fantastic. Take the trip, go see Taylor Swift. So it's up to you to make the Tetris pieces fit, but you decide and all your money flows for those four numbers.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.